Hey, this is Crystal Waters, and you're listening to the LSQ podcast.
Hey, I'm Jenny LSQ. Thanks for getting into episode 120 of the LSQ podcast. When I learned that house and dance music legend Crystal Waters has been finishing her first new album since 1997, and that she was getting ready to share singles and do interviews and therefore might be up for talking with me, I was so geeked. I've been a fan since the early 90s when huge hits like Gypsy Woman and 100% Pure Love were all over the radio, and it was an honor to get to connect with Crystal for a conversation about her songwriting process, about how she got her start in music, about why this current creative phase is one of the most exciting in her 30-plus year career, and more. Crystal recently shared an awesome new single called You and Me, a collaboration with the Swedish duo ManyFew. She was also recently honored during Miami Music Week at the inaugural Femmy Awards with awards for the Voice of House and the Female Icon Award. And Crystal has a lot more new music coming in the remainder of this year, and quite a few concerts as well. All right, here we go. Welcome to the LSQ podcast, Crystal Waters. It's an honor to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Appreciate you doing this. So, speaking of New York, you were just saying the idea of creatives moving back to New York. Is New York sort of like being in DC, like your creative hub? Like, do you go into the city to do work?
I travel a lot. I'm in New York a lot, but I have this home here right outside of DC, and I raised my children here. I just never moved. I lived in New York for 6 years, but I go to New York a lot. But I do come home because New York can be a little too much, and I come here when I want to write and be at peace. Like it's quiet. We have deer, stuff like that. So when I come home after traveling, this is I call it my little castle, my little villa, quiet spot.
And what's your creative space at home like? You have like a zone that you go to?
Yeah, I have the room I'm supposed to be in. I have a songwriting room. I took one of the bedrooms and I have, a nice setup because I do my podcast, I do my songwriting. And it's surrounded by inspirational photos. I have photos of like these antique microphones. A lot of my awards are up on the walls. I have inspirational quotes. I have a keyboard, a couple microphones, the usual suspects.
And what's your sort of creative practice like these days? Are you the sort of person who goes to work like you go in there because you're like this, if I don't come in here, I'm not going to do anything, or is it a sort of wait, inspiration strikes and then you go to the room?
It's a little, but I've had these conversations with my team because I have a hard time of doing the business and then switching over to creative. And the business side, that can overload you with so much stuff. So I have to actually take the time out, settle down, like no phone calls, turn it off, and actually get into the creative mode and make sure no one bothers me for like 3 or 4 days. Because like I said, it's sometimes the business, I could spend a week doing all this, this business side of everything and never write a song. So January I had off from touring. So most of the time I only took calls on a couple days a week and I've been writing, and once you get in that flow, it just starts to come more and more. So I like to stay in it. So I'm kind of in and out of it right now. I got two more songs to write, so I'm kind of coming out of it a little bit.
So you're working on finishing an album.
Yes, first album in I don't even know, a couple decades.
Yeah, yeah. And so how's it feeling? And what's the vibe of it?
It's feeling really good because, I didn't want to do album because it was such a singles market, but I wanted to do one more. House music is really big right now, and I really wanted to do more. So it's kind of I'm feeling really, really good about it. It started off a little like, nah, but now, like a year later, I'm feeling really, really good. I describe it as having classic house sounds, but with a modern edge. It just look just like me. That's how I'm describing it. So you'll hear some of those classic like that sounds, but it all has a nice progressive, modern, drum beats and loops and things like that to it.
And what are some of the themes that you've been interested in for this group of songs?
Let me see, because I'm still trying to name the album because I got different songs. I have one that's people say it's very typical Crystal Waters because it's got a positive, it's called Big Bite. It has a positive outlook on life and how you should take a big bite out of life. Don't sit around and waste it. It's got a lot of love songs, party songs, but it's all upbeat. I'm still working on. I have a couple down tempos. I have one. I always like to throw in like a jazz type of vibe in one of the tracks. So I have one of those. So it's coming out really rounded. I'm still looking for a couple more like big room tracks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. And how has your process? I mean, obviously you've done singles ever since the last full-length album, but like in terms of like putting together an album and stretching the ideas over a work like that long,
Mm.
how has your process changed since the last time you made a full-length album?
Well, the last time I made an album, you have to remember there was a label involved. I had certain producers already in place. So everything was a bit more organized. This time I have to go out and find these people I want to work with. And a lot of times in this era, it's very hard because people just want to take my name and put it on the record and put it out. And I'm trying to work with people who actually want to produce, actually co-create together, as opposed to, I told one guy last week, I said, I'm not going to create this song with you through text. We need to get on a Zoom or something and let's put our heart into this and then get this song because everything's really fast these days. So you got to be careful. So it's a little bit of trial and error, but I finally found these Swedish guys called ManyFew who really hit the nail on what I wanted. And the producers, they play instruments, you know what I mean? And they DJ. But once I got that sound, I got three really good sounding tracks. It was easier to go to explain to everyone else what I wanted. So it's been kind of a trial and error thing, actually. So it's kind of like new territory for me.
It's kind of fascinating. I was just thinking about in the moment how much dance music comes out of Sweden, or just how many like amazing like dance producers have come from Sweden over the years. Like, I mean, all I know to say is like, what's up with that? I wonder what's up with that.
It's a couple of things. I figured out, first of all, their school system, you can decide at a very young age if you want to go to traditional school or you want to go to a musician or creative aspect. So a lot of these guys grew up in school, learning about keyboards and how to create songs their whole life. And I think I give the Europeans applause because they took what we started back in the 90s and the 80s dance music and just kind of taking it to a whole nother level. Kind of, because I remember they were bad at it, but now they are doing it so well. And all these genres, different genres that have come out of it, they really studied us and they got it down. So I didn't go out seeking Swedish producers, but I find it funny. That's where I ended up. Just like you said, these guys are really good. So I'm happy that I found some guys that really know what they're doing.
Going back in time, what do you remember about when you first felt creative? At what age would you have been when you first remember feeling just like a spark of creativity of any kind?
I guess that would be when I started writing poetry. I remember, reading poetry, and I remember my sister used to write, and I actually used to teach it in school back then. So I remember I used to love writing because I was very shy. I didn't speak, and it was just, I guess, a way of expressing myself. So that's what I remember. And I remember when first started in the business, I knew I could write. That was the one thing I knew I could do and I could do well.
Yeah, I mean, for listeners, Crystal was only a teenager when she was inducted into the Society of American Poetry. Is that
American Society of
Society of
Something
Poetry?
like that, yeah.
And like the youngest person to have been inducted at that point, and
At
maybe,
that time.
yeah, maybe even since. So that validation of knowing, like, okay, officially, like adults recognize and think that I'm good at poetry must have like empowered you going forward to be like, okay, I'm onto something here with words.
Honestly, after that happened, it happened so quick. And once I went to high school after that, I mean, was it college after that? High school. I stopped writing. I stopped writing for years until I started doing songs. Life was just happening. You become a teenager and that's it. All that stuff happened. Yeah, it was all about going to college after that.
So then what sparked getting back into being creative and doing music?
Well, the story is I studied computer science at Howard University and I got my first job at the DC Parole Board, which is a government job. And if you work for the government, they hand you a piece of paper where you're G1, G2 that tells you how much money you're going to make each year. And if I looked at that piece of paper and it said if I stayed there for 12 years, I still wasn't going to be making any money. So I was very disappointed. My mom's, she was very into psychics. She told me that you should go see a psychic. So I went there happened to be a psychic fair that weekend. And I got up in the morning. I was fine. I got down there and I went to sit in front of the lady and I lost my voice. And she said, you need to be doing something with your voice. It's something you're not. And I was like, easy guess. Yeah, right. I lost my voice. And I was, like I said, I was very shy. I said, I thought she meant public speaking or something like that. I said, I'm not doing that. I went back to work, told my friends, and they said, well, you love music. So I used to have, like posters and things behind me of like all the artists I like. And I always had my radio on. And one of my coworkers, Steve Warren, said, my cousin is looking for background singers at his studio. He said, I'll go if you go. And I said, I'll go. And I had never sung in front of anybody before or anything. So we go down to the studio, we sing, and I got this job. I got this background job. And we did an album. It was for an African artist, I think maybe in 2 weeks, and I got $600, and that was like $1 million to me at the time. And I'm in there, I'm like, this is the light bulb went off, and I was like, this is where I want to be. This is, I love this. And I hung around the studio hoping to get more work, and but I could tell no one was, nothing was coming. And that's when I knew, I said, well, I can write. All I need to do was find somebody to do the music, and I can write because I knew I could write. So that's when I put a ad in the local city paper. Don't do this, people. It's too dangerous now. Looking for someone. They had a section for artists, looking for a keyboardist to write these songs with. And that's how it started. Found someone down here on the military base that wanted to write, and we did the first demo, and that's where it started.
But your first couple of hits were among the first couple of songs you wrote in that environment. Is that right?
Well, that was the group I was in that was called Modern Art. It was me and one other guy, and we took that demo to. I was doing more of a Sade thing because I wanted to be Sade. If you look in the Gypsy Woman video, I have the ponytail and the red lips. Um, and we took it. We got turned down by a lot of people. We went. There was used to be a music conference in DC. I don't remember the name. And we went. We snuck in the back door because we didn't have any money, and they were letting out, and we saw the Basement Boys. So handed my cassette demo to them, and they took it home and they called me that same night and said, we love the way you write, and would you write for us? So that was meeting them was my first introduction to dance music. And they sent me like 3 or 4 tracks. And the first 2 tracks I wrote was Gypsy Woman and Make It Happy. So that's how that came about.
And am I correct? Is that originally you weren't thinking you were going to be the vocalist on those tunes?
No, I was signed as a songwriter because I thought I was going to still do my jazz stuff, my Sade-ish stuff, which was more R&B. And it was written for another one of the artists. But in the end, they just liked the way my voice sounded on, I guess because I connected to what I was writing. And Gypsy Woman just got like signed like right away. I was very happy because in the end, they actually took my songs, the Sade songs, and they just remixed them and kind of, made it into dance stuff. So yeah. So then that's how I ended up doing my first album, my first dance album.
And so then suddenly there you are. Now you're the singer, you're the front person, you're the recording artist, which was not what you were picturing in the sort of in the lead up to that.
No.
No. Was it challenging to kind of just step into that? As you said, had been kind of shy, and yeah, was it challenging to just kind of adapt your perspective to like, okay, I'm in the spotlight now.
Yeah, it was challenging. It was a little bit easy because the song sat on the shelf for like 2 years. So I had a couple, years. But I will say I didn't have any stage fright. The first time I went out on stage, it was like no stage fright, which I thought was odd, but it was like, okay. But all the people pulling on you and the fame and all the, traveling, I had a young family. I was going through a divorce. So it was a lot, a lot. It was a lot to attend to. I don't even know if I was happy. I see some pictures of me and it's like you don't see a smile on my face at all. So, I probably didn't understand how big the song was at the time. I never thought I would be doing it for the next 33 years, I think it is. I would say I was a bit clueless at the time.
And so was there touring right away? You were out on the road?
Oh yeah, they took me, 'cause I I didn't leave my government job for a long time because I wanted my health insurance. But first thing I did, they put me on a plane to London for Top of the Pops. I did that TV show that then I flew me on the Concorde, if you remember the Concorde, back to New York for my first performance in New York at the Palladium with an orchestra.
Damn.
Never performed with a band or anything before. And yeah, with dancers and they had the Wizard of Oz going on behind me, I guess. And by this time, they had remixed Gypsy and all the songs so much. And I hadn't even heard them until the rehearsal that day for the show. And I remember getting on stage and singing Make It Happy, and it was like an 8-minute version. And I just kept I just kept turning around because I didn't know what they had rearranged the song and everything. I didn't know what was going on, but yeah, it was a whirlwind. And then back then, it was a club on every corner in New York. So we would do like 3 shows a night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday sometimes. It was a lot. It was a lot.
It sounds like you kind of got drawn into like the house music, dance music scene through making this music that took off. But like, did once you found that you were in that world, did that feel like, oh, this is my scene, this is my shit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they took me up to 'cause they took me up to New York to hear it in the Sound Factory, Junior Vasco. 'Cause everybody said you have to sit on these speakers. I remember seeing Madonna always hanging out sitting on these big black speakers and to feel it. It was like, oh wow, this is it. This is all the dancers kind of took me in New York, and it was all the drag queens and the voguing in the middle of the floor. It was like everybody who didn't fit in everywhere else, they fit in right here. And I felt the same way because I felt like I always felt like I never fit in anywhere else. But once I got there and the music and the community, it was just, I was like, this is it. I didn't need to do the Sade anymore. And I was just very happy, being in this whole new vibe and this whole new scene. So yeah, I didn't look back after that.
And so you were on a label at this point, and but obviously, like the genre was still new as something that was commercial and could be on the charts. What was it like just kind of dealing with the mainstream music industry, figuring out this genre, this sort of newly commercial genre?
Oh, it was a little rough because they kept saying we were a fad. It wasn't real music. It's going to go away. Crystal, when are you going to do some real music? And I come from a jazz family, so it was, we got beat up pretty big. People don't know what, when it's new, people don't understand it. But I still felt like I was good at this. This is what when I was doing something that was really worthwhile. So, we came in and I came in like 91 and by 94, dance music was off the radio here. Hip hop had came in and take over. So we really, after that, we really had to kind of survive again underground.
Yeah, what were in the years since then when you've been focusing on singles and working with younger artists and, having hit singles year after year on the charts, like
Mhm.
what were some of the moments that were exciting for you? What have been some of the kind of musical discoveries or like pivots in your sound that you've discovered that have felt like a renewal?
Hmm, that's interesting. It was a lot of trying new things. I felt like, around 2010, 12, I was trying to, trying out new sounds, new ideas, just so everything was just new again, if that makes sense. So it was really a lot of fun doing that, but still, just still being able to write. And by that time, it was still a lot of figuring out of the business side because by that time, everybody was independent and everything was so new again. It was like starting over almost. I think right now, where I am now is very exciting because I'm loving the stuff I'm writing. I'm loving the sounds I'm hearing. I'm loving the quality of the production. And I feel like I'm like in my groove again. And it feels like it's on point. I feel like it's flowing through me with ease. So I think right now, for me, is the most exciting time.
Amazing. And so what is, if I mean, if you don't mind me asking, what is the sort of hypothetical timeline for this next set of tunes? I know you've got a couple more songs to go, but when are you hoping to have something like finished and out?
Well, the first release is March 21st. So yeah, we're set up. I have a nice deal in place, and we got 3 singles ready to go. And I'm hoping by September we'll do the album because that's what people do now. You release a single each month, and hopefully by the end of the year, everybody wants to hear the whole album.
Amazing. So wait, what's the first single?
It's called You and Me. We had to take a vote. There was so yes, it's You and Me. We decided on You and Me. Yes, it's a good one. It's with the producers ManyFew out of Sweden. The track is really cool. It's very up tempo, of course, and it's just a love song, You and Me. But it's how can I describe it? It's just a little bit different. It has that house feel, but it's a commercial song. It's a tracky song. It's just a really good feel good vibe. I'll say that. You just gotta hear it. You gotta hear it.
That's awesome. And are you gonna be doing a bunch of shows then around the spring and summer?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I just did Fashion Week. I did a preview of the song, and then in Miami, they're having Miami Music Week, which I'll be performing the song. And then I usually go on tour in the spring through Pride season, like probably starting around May. Well, I got shows starting in April actually, but the main tour will be like from May to September.
Amazing.
I'm calling it the 2025 Staying Alive Tour.
Nice. Yeah. Manifesting that for everyone.
Yeah, we need it this year.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for getting together to do this. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, you too.
All right, well, that's it for episode 120. Thanks again to Crystal Waters. Get out and see one of her upcoming shows if you can. She's playing in Philly on May 31st and San Francisco on June 28th, and has a couple of other dates booked beyond that already. And thank you again for listening to the LSQ podcast. You can find other episodes at jennylsq.com and on podcast platforms. There's also the new animated version with an awesome animated loop by Jess Rotter and Andrew DeSelm, viewable on Spotify and YouTube. If you want to reach me, I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram at JennyLSQ, and you can email me at lsqpod@gmail.com.